Hi, we're joined by Nikisi Lesufi, who is the Senior Executive for Health and the Environment with the Chamber of Mines. Mr. Lesufi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Simon.
You guys have recently launched your guidelines for the environment for mines. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, I think the Chamber early on took a decision that they will not mine in any protected areas. But I think we thought we were actually identifying that there are areas where there's outstanding universal value, which society has agreed to. But as time went on, we realized that even areas where are not necessarily in protected areas, but still need to be managed in a far much more responsible manner. So we decided to undertake a project with the Department of Environmental Affairs, SENBI, and other government departments that we from the mining sector we need to up our game in terms of management of biodiversity. So we decided that in major decision-making process, we need to make sure that biodiversity is mainstreamed in business decision-making processes, and therefore we produce this guideline, and we hope that we're going to roll it out in terms of our implementation programs, where we go out to mining companies and sort of give them, this is what is expected, how far have you performed, where are the gaps, so that if there are any policy gaps from our side, we should be able to up our game.
How does this go further than the legislation that we've already got?
No, it goes further than the legislation because, as I said, we took a decision that we're not going to mine in protected areas. These are legislative, the Protected Areas Act, the Biodiversity Act, etc., etc. But we also realize that there are certain areas which are not yet declared protected areas, but because of their outstanding universal value, they still need to be protected from a corporate responsibility perspective. So we decided that in terms of decision-making process, we don't think that the environmental management programs as they stand now fully identifies the importance of biodiversity. So in terms of developing these guidelines, we were trying to say to government that there are certain areas where we think that there are policy gaps, and we have taken the effort, the initiative to develop this guideline so that whenever the government decides to make regulations, they can always tap back on those guidelines and see if there are any provisions in those guidelines that need to be regularized for everybody to comply with, rather than be a voluntary initiative.
Mines in South Africa are under enormous pressure at the moment. We've got rising labour costs, rising power costs. How have your members responded to now asking them to have a whole other range of best practice?
Yeah, I think it's a multidimensional approach. I think you can't really ignore the prioritization of issues. I think cannot be only be focused on one area. I think they need to be able to manage the multidimensional nature of mining. I mean, mining interacts with a number of areas. It may be labor relations, maybe health and safety, and it may be, environment as it stands. And none of them are such that you can ignore them. So you need to factor them in the original decision-making process. If you can't account for the full extent of your mining operation, you have that necessary due diligence. So there's a suspect in terms of your plan if you have not factored in some of the issues that we are raising now.
Is there a business case for good environmental custodianship from mines?
There's a very fundamental business case for good environmental management in mining, because without protecting the natural capital, you will not be able to leverage the other capital that you might accrue in time.
I'm not sure if that's true, though. I mean, we've built an entire economy on mines which have taken their value and then gone bust and moved off.
Yes, but I think there's a price to pay.
Yeah, but it's not being paid by the miners.
No. Yes, that's the pay. That's the fact that there's a price to pay. But what we are really saying is that the decisions that we took in the 50s and the 60s, with the benefit of hindsight, we should be able to improve on that performance. There's some serious lessons that have been learned. You can move from the area of biodiversity to the area of acid mine drainage. That there are examples where improper policies, deficient performance by the industry have left the current generation with a lot of legacies to manage. And we didn't want to do that where when we had an opportunity to put in place proper tools, we did not do so. Or even if we put the tools, we did not make sure that those policies were followed properly. So I am of the view that we regard ourselves as far-sighted elements of the industry. Therefore, we'll try and raise the bar, where we feel and think that the bar should be raised, regardless of what the policy framework stands. But we will initiate our own initiatives, and this is part of it.
The outgoing or ex-CEO of Coal of Africa Limited, John Wallington, who I think is now widely considered to be one of the most forward-thinking of mining CEOs in terms of the environment, made the statement recently that he felt that because of the onerous environmental commitments that mines now need to make, mining was no longer a small company's game. It was, junior miners just couldn't budget the necessary to fill their environmental obligations. Does the Chamber stand by that sort of statement?
No, we don't want to exclude we don't want to exclude junior mining companies from entry into the mining sector, but I think the full implications of them coming into the sector, should be a fair consideration by the state, because in terms of the law, when we enter into a mining activity, you should have the financial resources, the technical know-how, and the human skills to be able to undertake your activity. And those activities have got serious implications for the owner of the mine. Therefore, whether you are a small-scale miner or a large-scale miner, pollution is pollution. You need to be able to manage it. So all that I'm saying is that if there are small-scale miners that come in, there should be a support program by the state to assist them to live to their environmental and health and safety obligations. Because whether an accident is caused by a small miner, by a large miner, at the end of the day, it's loss of life.
How is this program actually going to work practically? How are you going to roll it out?
Well, at the Chamber, we've got a specific committee that deal with environmental matters called the Environmental Policy Committee of the Chamber. This is a group of company experts, environmental experts from the mining companies, where we work out a program that each company has got a champion. So this champion is the one who's got the responsibility to infuse that guideline into the decision-making processes of the mine. Secondly, how accountability for the implementation of that guideline is going to be accounted for. Who's going to be responsible? Who's going to be held liable that, the various layers of management within the company are not aware of the guideline and are not implementing it.
I think with some of the environmental responses from government recently, mines are beginning to get the compliance message though.
The important thing that I wanted to highlight is that, this is a beyond compliance issue. From our side, we were fully aware that there's a plethora of legislations out there that's supposed to cover environmental management, but we still feel that in terms of biodiversity, there have been a deficit in terms of ensuring that it's not simply a compliance issue, but is a value addition matter. Because companies are vast owners of land. Vast amounts of land are owned by companies, and if we give them opportunities to be able to add value from a biodiversity perspective of those portions of land that they own, I think we'll be doing South Africa a big service.
Mr. Lesufi, thank you very much for joining us.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.